It's the small, rational compromises that break you. My life, before the brownstone on Charter Street, was a testament to managed expectations. I'm Mark Sullivan, or I was. I was an audio engineer, a man who believed the world was just a collection of frequencies, measurable, quantifiable. You could filter out the noise, isolate the signal. I thought that applied to life too. Then came the divorce. Sarah and I, we didn't end with a bang. We were a long, slow fade, like a note held until the breath runs out. The silence that followed was deafening. I left our clean, suburban colonial in Newton and took the first place I could afford in Boston's North End. It was a fresh start, which is just a polite term for a full retreat. The building was pre-war, which meant it had character. Character, I learned, means walls thin enough to hear your neighbor sigh, plumbing that groans like a dying man, and a permanent clinging scent of dust and old cooking. My unit, 4B, was at the end of a long, dimly lit hallway. The light fixture buzzed, casting a jaundiced, flickering glow. Still, the rent was cheap, and the isolation felt appropriate. I was a man pruning his life back to the essentials: work, sleep, and the quiet hum of my editing rig. I prided myself on my skepticism. I'd spent my career removing pops, hisses, and phantom noises from recordings. I knew the tricks the mind plays. I understood pareidolia, the brain's desperate need to find patterns in chaos, to see a face in the clouds or hear a voice in the static. I was in control of my reality. For the first week, the apartment was just an apartment. I set up my studio monitors, my interface, my beloved collection of vintage microphones. The routine was my anchor. I'd work until 2 a.m., the blue light of my monitor painting the bare walls, then fall into a restless sleep. The sounds of the building were my new, unwanted orchestra. The thump-clank of the radiator, the distant city sirens, the footsteps of the tenant above me, pacing, always pacing. It was while trying to fix a warped floorboard near the fireplace that I found it. The board was loose, and when I pried it up, I expected to find old wiring or just debris. Instead, I found a small, dark void and a latch. It was the top of a door, a small one, no bigger than a medicine cabinet, set flush with the plaster. It had been papered over, then painted, then papered over again. A forgotten closet, sealed for decades. My vulnerability wasn't just the divorce, it was my professional curiosity. A sealed room, a mystery. It was a signal in the noise. I chipped away the plaster and brittle paint. The latch was brass, stiff with verdigris. It took an hour of work, my fingers raw, before it finally gave way with a sickening thud. The inside was a coffin of dust. It smelled of decay, not of a body, but of time itself, the dry, papery scent of forgotten things. And sitting on a single small shelf was a Tika 3300SX reel-to-reel tape recorder. It was a beautiful piece of equipment, a relic from the 70s, solid steel and wood paneling. A single 7-inch reel of quarter-inch tape was threaded through the heads, as if waiting to be played. This was the incursion. Not a sound, not a shadow, just an object displaced in time. I pulled it out, my audio geek heart pounding faster than my sense of caution. I spent the rest of the afternoon cleaning it. I swabbed the heads with isopropyl alcohol, blew the dust from the capstan, checked the belts. It was in remarkable condition. I plugged it into my surge protector. The VU meter lights flickered to life, a faint amber glow. I hit play. The motors whirred, the reels turned. And from my studio monitors, connected via the machine's RCA outputs, came static. Not clean, white noise. This was thick, heavy, wet static, like a rainstorm recorded from inside a metal drum. I put on my professional headphones, the Beyerdynamic DT770s, closing my eyes to listen. I cranked the gain on my mixing board. The static was a wall, but it wasn't uniform. It ebbed and flowed, and beneath it, almost imperceptible, was something else. A rhythm, thump-psh, thump-psh. It was a familiar sound, but I couldn't place it. A faulty ground loop, a damaged tape. It was almost biological, like a heartbeat, but wrong. The thump was heavy, and the shh was a wet, dragging sound, like a mop soaked in mud. Then, The whisper. It was so low, so buried in the noise, I thought I was imagining it. A sibilant hiss. I rewound the tape, listened again, filtered it in my mind. There. Home now. I ripped the headphones off. My heart was hammering. The room was silent. Just pareidolia, Mark, I said aloud. The sound of my own voice was a comfort. I was tired, emotionally raw from the divorce. My brain was just filling in the blanks. The recording was degraded, the oxide shedding from the tape. It was noise, nothing more. That night, I woke up at 3:17 a.m. The apartment was cold, the radiator having lost its fight hours ago. I lay in the dark, and I heard it. Thump-shh, thump-shh. It wasn't coming from my speakers. They were off. It was coming, I thought, from the apartment above, or the walls. Thump-shh. The building settling. The old plumbing. That's what I told myself. I buried my head under the pillow, but the sound seemed to resonate in the bone of my skull. It was the sound from the tape, and it was here. The next few days were a descent. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. The sound was always there, at the very edge of my hearing. It was a constant companion, a low-level dread that stained everything. My work suffered. I'd be trying to EQ a vocal track and I'd hear the thump, shh, under the singer's voice, forcing me to check my inputs, my cables, my sanity. I called my friend Ben. Ben's a software engineer, the most rational man I know. The skeptic. Hey man, I said, trying to sound casual. This new building is weird. You ever hear of old plumbing sounding like a wet heartbeat? He laughed. A wet heartbeat? Dude, that's poetic. You're just not used to old world charm. It's Boston. You've probably got rats the size of poodles in the walls. Or the guy upstairs has a visitor. Don't sweat it. Get some noise-canceling headphones. His dismissal was a brick wall. Who could I tell? My ex-wife, Sarah? She already thought I was on the verge of a breakdown. Mark, you're just stressed. You need to get out of that apartment. I was alone with it. The sound was the hook. The tape was the bait. I couldn't leave it alone. I became obsessed. I digitized the entire reel into Pro Tools, my digital audio workstation, my sanctuary. Here I was in control. I could see the sound. The waveform of the static was dense, thick, but the thump shh was visible, a recurring low-frequency spike. I started the filtering process. I applied a high-pass filter, cutting out the mud. A noise reduction plug-in, stripping away the hiss. I isolated the frequencies where the human voice lives. The work was painstaking. It took hours. I was an archaeologist, brushing dirt from a bone, and the whisper began to emerge. It wasn't one voice. It was many. Overlapping, frantic, dry whispers. They were layered, like a crowd muttering in a vast empty space. Doesn't want to leave. Listens back. Opened the door for us. So cold. He's listening now. My blood turned to ice. That last one. It was immediate. I slammed the spacebar, silencing the track. My reflection in the dark monitor was a pale, hollow-eyed ghost. This wasn't an old recording. It was reacting to me. My skepticism was dying. A new, desperate fear was taking its place. I had to know. Who lived here? What was this tape? The investigation became my life. I started online, property records. The building was erected in 1919. I dug into the Boston Globe archives. I was looking for a tragedy, a fire, a murder, anything. For days, nothing. Just leases, zoning permits, the mundane history of a building. Then I spoke to Mrs. Petrov. She was the building's matriarch, a frail woman in 3B who had lived there since the 60s, the harbinger. I caught her in the lobby, struggling with her mail. "Excuse me, Mrs. Petrov. I just moved into 4B. Her polite, wrinkled smile froze. It didn't just fade. It snapped off, like a light. Her eyes, cloudy with cataracts, focused on me with a sudden, sharp intensity. 4B, she said. Her voice was a dry rustle. Yes, I'm just curious about the history. It's an interesting layout. She clutched her mail to her chest. You should not be in 4B. They should not rent that one. Not after Dr. Thorne. The name hit me like a physical blow. Dr. Thorne. Who was Dr. Thorne? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He was a scholar. Lived there in the 70s. A strange man, always listening. Had wires everywhere. She gestured, her hand trembling. He had a theory. He called it residual resonance. He told me this building, this land, was sick. Sick? How? This was pasture land before, she said, leaning closer. But before that, an unmarked potter's field. For the poor, the sick, the city built over them. Dr. Thorne believed. He believed the suffering soaked into the ground, into the wood and the plaster. He said the building remembered. My skin crawled. He's listening now. What? What happened to him? He went mad, she said flatly. He started talking to the walls. He said they were talking back. He boarded up that little closet. Said it was a focal point. Said it was leaking. Her eyes darted to the end of the hall, towards my apartment. One day, the smell. The superintendent broke down the door. The apartment was empty. Dr. Thorne was gone, vanished, but all his machines, they were still running. Playing that awful sound, that static. I thanked her and stumbled back to my apartment. The air inside felt pressurized, heavy. I sat at my computer. Residual resonance. Dr. Thorne wasn't just recording the air. He was trying to record the walls. He had jammed contact microphones into the plaster, and the reel-to-reel was the capture device. He hadn't been recording an echo. He had been recording a consciousness. A collective, miserable consciousness of the unmarked dead. And I had just spent 3 days filtering, amplifying, and focusing it. I had given it my full, undivided attention. I had to know the last piece. The thump shh sound. What was it? I went back to the original, unfiltered audio file. The heavy static. The wet, rhythmic noise. I stared at the waveform, my mind racing. Opened the door. Listens back. A thought struck me. A cold, terrible piece of technical intuition. What if I was listening to it the wrong way? With a shaking hand, I selected the entire audio file. I went to the menu. Process greater than reverse. The computer churned for a second. The waveform flipped. I put on my headphones. I hit play. The static was different. An inverted, sucking sound. The whispers were gone. Now just backward, demonic hisses. But the thump shh. It was no longer a rhythm. It was a voice. It was reversed speech. A single, deep, guttural voice, slowed down, hidden beneath the noise. It was saying something, over and over. I am climbing out. Now. My heart stopped. The sound I had been hearing in the walls, the sound I had amplified, wasn't a heartbeat. It wasn't plumbing. It was the sound of something dragging itself, inch by inch, out of the walls, out of the resonance, into the physical world. And as that realization crystallized, a new sound came from my speakers. A new whisper, clean and clear, in perfect, unreversed English. It wasn't on the tape. It was coming through the live input of my mixing board. "We see you, Mark Sullivan. We've been waiting." I screamed and threw my headphones. They smashed against the wall. The apartment plunged into a sudden, icy cold. The thump shh was no longer in the walls. It was in the room. The shift was absolute. The veil of reality, my comfortable, rational world, didn't just tear. It was incinerated. The subtle incursion was over. The escalation had begun. The first thing to go was the light. The bulbs in my apartment began to flicker and pop, one by one, plunging the rooms into a perpetual twilight. The static was no longer confined to the recording. It was an audible hiss in the air, a sound I could feel on my skin, like 1,000 tiny insects crawling over me, and the whispers. They stopped being whispers and became a cacophony. I'd hear my name called from the empty kitchen. I'd hear Sarah's voice, crying, telling me it was all my fault. I'd hear Ben laughing at me. The entity, the collective, was using my own memories as a weapon, isolating me, breaking me down. I tried to flee. I threw clothes in a bag, grabbed my keys, and ran. I got to the lobby, my breath clouding in the freezing air, and scrambled into my car. I jammed the key in the ignition. Nothing. Just a dead click. Then the radio clicked on. It wasn't a station. It was that static. The thick, wet static from the tape, blasting at full volume. And beneath it, the thump shh, coming from all four speakers. I scrambled out of the car and ran. I didn't care where. I just ran until my lungs burned. I ended up at a cheap motel near Logan Airport, the sound of jets a welcome mechanical scream. I paid cash for a room. I locked the deadbolt, jammed a chair under the knob. I collapsed on the bed, my entire body shaking. I must have passed out. I woke up hours later. The room was dark. The television was on. It was an old CRT model, showing a screen of pure, rolling static. Thump shh, thump shh. It wasn't coming from the TV speaker. It was coming from the air conditioner vent. It was coming from the plumbing in the bathroom. It wasn't in the apartment. It wasn't on the tape. It was attached to me. I had listened. I had invited it. I was the receiver. I returned to 4B. There was nowhere else to go. The apartment was my prison. The entity was no longer hiding. It was solidifying. It started with shadows. My peripheral vision became a nightmare. I'd see a shape, impossibly tall and thin, standing in the hallway. When I turned, it would be gone, leaving only an after-image of TV static burned onto my retina. The smell in the apartment changed. The dry, papery dust was replaced by a sharp, metallic odor, the smell of ozone and damp, freshly turned earth. Then, it attacked. I was asleep, or in that paralyzed state just before it. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. My eyes were open. It was standing in the corner of my bedroom. It was 9 feet tall at least. It wasn't a man. It was a column of roiling dark static, a vortex of noise given form. It had no face, but I could feel its attention, a cold, ancient malice. It moved, and the thump shh sound was deafening. It was the sound of its foot, a misshapen, dragging appendage, scraping across my floor. It glided to the bedside. It bent over me. The smell of ozone and wet soil was overwhelming. I felt a pressure on my chest, a crushing weight. I saw a hand, a chaotic tangle of static, reach for my face. It didn't touch me. It hovered over my mouth, and I felt my breath being pulled out, replaced by an arctic cold. I thought I was dying. And then Ben called. My phone, on the nightstand, buzzed. The sound, the vibration, it broke the spell. The pressure vanished. The figure recoiled, dissolving into a million specks of noise. I gasped, lunging for the phone. It was Ben. He was worried. I hadn't answered his texts. Mark? Mark, you there? You sound awful. Ben, I wept. Ben, you have to help me. It's real. It's here. Okay, Mark? I'm coming over. You sound like you're in real trouble. I'm coming over. Don't do anything stupid. I'll be there in 20. He was the skeptic, but he was also my friend. He was coming. A flare of false hope lit up my terror. I wasn't alone. He arrived 20 minutes later, banging on the door. I let him in. The apartment was freezing. Jesus, Mark, he said, staring at me. I hadn't looked in a mirror, but I knew I was a wreck. Gaunt, wild-eyed. What the hell is going on? Why is it so cold? Did your heat break? It's not the heat, Ben. It's here. It's in the room. What's in the... He stopped. He saw the teak recorder still sitting on my desk. He saw the audio files on my screen. Mark, you're obsessing. This isn't healthy. That divorce... It's not the divorce, I screamed. Listen. The apartment was silent. Terribly, completely silent. No static, no whispers, no thump shh. I don't hear anything, man, Ben said, his voice soft, full of pity. He thought I was insane. No, it's playing possum, I stammered, backing away. It does this. It's, Mark, let's get you out of here. Let's go to my place. He put his hand on my shoulder, and the reel-to-reel machine behind him clicked on. The reels began to spin, fast, the tape flapping. Ben spun around. What is that? A remote? I don't have one, I whispered. The static from the tape machine hissed to life. But it wasn't static. It was a voice. Ben's voice. Dude, that's poetic. You probably got rats. It was playing back our phone conversation from days ago. Ben's face went white. How did you record that? I didn't. The lights in the room went out. We were plunged into total darkness, lit only by the amber VU meters on the teak. Mark, Ben whispered, his voice shaking. What is that? He was pointing at the hallway. It was standing there, the full 9-foot-tall column of roiling static and darkness. It wasn't hiding. It was blocking the only exit. The thump shh was like a drum. It raised one of its static limbs. Ben, run, I whispered. Get behind me. But Ben was frozen. The skeptic, confronted with the impossible. The entity lunged. It didn't move fast. It just expanded. The darkness filled the room. I was thrown back against the wall. I heard Ben scream. It was a wet, choked-off sound. Then, silence. The lights flickered back on. The room was empty. The reel-to-reel was powered down. Ben was gone. His keys were on the floor. His phone was on the coffee table. But Ben was gone. I knew he wasn't coming back. I was completely, irrevocably alone. The ally, the last tie to my old life, had been sacrificed to prove the threat. The entity wasn't just a haunting. It was a predator. I don't know how long I sat on the floor, staring at Ben's keys. Hours. A day. Time had lost its meaning. The police would come. They would ask questions. They would see the paranoid, sleep-deprived lunatic in the freezing apartment. They would see me. I knew then I couldn't run. I couldn't fight it. It was too strong. It was part of the place. And now it was part of me. My mind, shattered as it was, fixated on Dr. Thorne. He went mad. He vanished. But he knew the rules. Listens back. Opened the door. The entity was resonance. It was an echo that had gained power by being observed, by being listened to. My high-end audio equipment hadn't just found it. It had fed it. It had taken the faint residual misery and focused it, amplified it, given it shape. It wanted to be heard. It wanted to be real. A new thought formed, not a plan. A desperate, final gamble. A sacrifice. If listening gave it power, what would recording it do? Not the walls. I set up my studio. I was moving on autopilot, a ghost in my own body. I took my most expensive microphone, a Neumann U87, a condenser mic so sensitive it can capture the sound of a spider walking on silk. I plugged it into my interface. I didn't point it at the walls. I pointed it at the center of the room, where it had taken Ben. I opened a new session in Pro Tools. I created a single mono track. I sat in my chair. I put on my headphones, plugging them directly into the interface. I took a breath, and I hit play on the teak machine. The static, the whispers, the reversed guttural voice. The room dropped 20 degrees. The ozone smell flooded my lungs. It materialized instantly. It was vast. It filled the space, a swirling tornado of darkness and noise, the faces of 1,000 suffering souls visible in the chaos. It lunged, not at me, but at the recorder. It seemed to hate the source of its prison. No, I whispered. My voice shook. Not that. Me. I turned the gain on the microphone all the way up, and I hit record. The red light on the interface lit up. The waveform on my screen, which had been a flat line, exploded. The entity stopped. It turned. The vortex of static focused, all its attention snapping from the teak to me, to the microphone. It sensed a new observation, the high-fidelity, digital capture. It was being seen. It was being archived. It began to funnel. The massive room-filling column of darkness began to constrict, drawn toward the silver capsule of the Neumann like iron filings to a magnet. The whispers became a single, deafening, digital shriek that peaked the meters. It was working. It was being drawn out of the room, out of me, and into the recording. It was a new, better prison. But it was too much. The power it held, the sheer volume of its existence, was too much for the equipment. My studio monitors exploded, the cones ripping from the chassis. The microphone capsule glowed white-hot and then burst. My interface sparked, a puff of acrid smoke. The shriek cut off, and the resulting sonic boom shattered every window in the apartment. I was thrown backward in my chair, a searing white-hot pain lancing through my head. I felt a pop, a wetness, and then silence. A true, perfect, terrifying silence. I live in Phoenix now. I moved as far as I could from the damp cold of Boston. My new apartment is modern, sterile, all glass and white paint. There are no dark closets. There are no old pipes. I survived. But survival is not victory. The confrontation left its scar. I am partially deaf in my left ear, the one that took the brunt of the feedback. A constant, high-pitched ring is all I hear on that side. My career as an audio engineer is over. The slightest sound of static, a bad radio signal, a poorly grounded amplifier, sends me into a full-blown panic attack. I live my life in a bubble of managed sound. The police investigated 4B. They found an apartment destroyed, as if by a bomb. They found Ben's keys. They never found Ben. They questioned me, but I was a broken, half-deaf man muttering about bad wiring and sonic frequencies. They ruled Ben's disappearance a missing person case. With me as a person of interest, I could never clear. Sarah thinks I'm a monster. Mrs. Petrov, I heard, moved into a nursing home, refusing to speak. The building on Charter Street was condemned. I did not defeat the entity. I just transferred it. I trapped it. On a hard drive. I still have it. A single terabyte drive, locked in a safe deposit box. I don't know why I keep it. Maybe because destroying it feels more dangerous than holding it. I am a marked witness. I have seen the other side, the noise beneath our reality. I know that the past is never dead. It's not even past. It's just waiting. Waiting to be listened to. My new life is a fragile equilibrium, a constant paranoid vigilance. I live in silence, but sometimes, in the dead of night, when the silence is too perfect, I can still hear it. Not with my ears, but in the ringing, in the damaged nerves, in the memory. A faint, faint echo. Thump,